Imagine waking up every morning carrying not one heartbeat, but two, while your calendar is already full of deadlines, meetings, expectations, and responsibilities that don't pause just because your body is creating life. Twin pregnancy is often romanticized as double the blessing, double the joy, double the love. What is rarely discussed is the double exhaustion, the intensified nausea, the amplified anxiety, and the silent pressure to keep performing at work as if nothing extraordinary is happening inside you. This is the story of how I navigated the demanding intersection between professional ambition and a high-risk, emotionally complex twin pregnancy, learning how to honor my limits without abandoning my goals. It is not a story of perfection, but of balance, resilience, and profound transformation. Balancing a career while carrying twins was one of the most demanding chapters of my life, both physically and emotionally. It required discipline, vulnerability, and a radical redefinition of what productivity and strength truly mean. In this video, I want to share the real experience behind the polished social media announcements, the fatigue, the fear, the strategic adjustments, and the mindset shifts that allowed me to maintain my professional routine while protecting my health and my babies. If you are navigating pregnancy, planning for motherhood, or simply trying to balance multiple responsibilities without losing yourself, this story is for you. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and stay until the end, because the lessons I learned go far beyond pregnancy. They are about sustainable success and self-respect. When I first learned I was carrying twins, the news arrived with a mixture of awe and immediate awareness that everything I thought I knew about pregnancy would need to be adjusted. A multiple pregnancy is not simply a pregnancy multiplied by 2. It is an entirely different physiological and emotional landscape. My doctor explained that the physical demands on my body would be significantly higher, the monitoring more frequent, and the risks more carefully managed. At the same time, my professional life was at a peak of responsibility. I was involved in projects that required constant communication, decision-making, and long hours of focused mental effort. The realization that my body would be under extraordinary strain while my career demanded consistency forced me to confront a question early on. Could I truly balance everything without compromising either my health or my professional integrity? That question became the central tension of my journey, shaping every decision I would make in the months that followed. The first trimester was an exercise in survival disguised as normalcy. Fatigue settled into my bones in a way I had never experienced before, not the kind that disappears after a good night's sleep, but the kind that lingers even after rest. Nausea was not a morning inconvenience. It was a persistent presence that accompanied conference calls and strategic planning sessions. I learned to keep snacks nearby, to drink water constantly, and to excuse myself discreetly when necessary. What made it especially challenging was that, during those early weeks, very few people knew about the pregnancy. Maintaining a professional facade while managing waves of dizziness and exhaustion required an internal strength I didn't know I possessed. I realized that balancing everything did not mean pretending nothing was happening. It meant creating small, invisible systems of support for myself so I could continue delivering quality work without denying the reality of what my body was enduring. As my pregnancy progressed into the second trimester, the physical visibility of carrying twins changed the dynamic at work. My body grew rapidly, and with it, the comments, curiosity, and sometimes unsolicited advice. While many reactions were warm and supportive, I had to learn how to protect my emotional energy. Multiple pregnancy often comes with heightened medical monitoring, which meant more appointments, more ultrasounds, and more scheduling adjustments. I became meticulous with my calendar, blocking time for medical visits as non-negotiable commitments. This required clear communication with my team and a willingness to delegate more than I was used to. Letting go of certain responsibilities felt uncomfortable at first, as if I were relinquishing control. However, I began to understand that leadership is not about doing everything yourself, but about ensuring that everything gets done sustainably. Delegation became not a weakness, but a strategic necessity for balancing my professional routine with the growing demands of my pregnancy. The emotional dimension of carrying twins while working full-time was just as complex as the physical one. There were moments of intense joy when I felt both babies move at once, a synchronized reminder that life was unfolding within me in extraordinary ways. But there were also waves of anxiety, amplified by statistics about premature birth and complications common in multiple pregnancies. Reading too much medical information late at night sometimes left me overwhelmed, questioning whether I was pushing myself too hard by continuing to work at my previous pace. I had to cultivate mental discipline, limiting my exposure to alarming content and focusing instead on what I could control, attending appointments, following medical advice, eating well, resting when possible, and maintaining open communication with my healthcare team. Emotional balance became a daily practice. I realized that fear thrives in silence, so I began journaling regularly, processing my concerns on paper rather than allowing them to spiral in my mind during critical work hours. By the third trimester, the physical strain intensified significantly. Carrying twins meant my body felt weeks ahead of a singleton pregnancy in terms of weight, pressure, and fatigue. Simple tasks like sitting through long meetings or standing for presentations required strategic preparation. I adjusted my workspace ergonomics, added cushions for lumbar support, and requested more flexible arrangements when possible. I learned the power of micro breaks, stepping away for a few minutes to stretch, breathe, and reset. These small pauses were not indulgences. They were essential investments in my endurance. Maintaining my professional routine during this stage demanded humility. I could no longer operate at the same speed as before, and accepting that reality was liberating. Productivity shifted from quantity to quality. I focused intensely during my most energetic hours and allowed myself permission to slow down when my body signaled the need. Listening to those signals became a form of strength rather than surrender. One of the most transformative shifts during this period was redefining what balance truly meant. Initially, I believed balancing everything implied equal attention to work and pregnancy at all times. Over time, I realized balance is dynamic, not static. Some days required prioritizing rest because my body was signaling exhaustion. Other days allowed for high productivity and creative breakthroughs. Instead of striving for perfect symmetry, I embraced flexibility. This mindset reduced guilt significantly. Guilt had been my constant companion in the early months. Guilt for not performing at 100% professionally. Guilt for feeling stressed and wondering if it affected the babies. When I reframed balance as an evolving process rather than a fixed standard, I felt lighter. I began measuring success not by how much I accomplished each day, but by whether I honored both my responsibilities and my physical limits with integrity. That shift in perspective was fundamental in sustaining my energy through the final weeks of pregnancy. Communication played a crucial role in maintaining my professional routine. Early transparency with supervisors and colleagues allowed for realistic planning and contingency strategies, rather than waiting for visible exhaustion to justify adjustments. I proactively discussed timelines, project transitions, and potential leave scenarios. This approach created trust and minimized last-minute stress. I also learned to articulate my needs clearly, whether it was requesting remote work on certain days or adjusting meeting durations. Advocating for myself felt uncomfortable at first, especially in environments that reward constant availability. However, I understood that carrying twins was not a minor condition. It was a significant physical undertaking. By communicating openly, I modeled a healthier professional culture, one where life events are acknowledged rather than hidden. This honesty strengthened my relationships at work and reduced internal pressure to appear invulnerable, allowing me to focus more fully on delivering meaningful contributions without sacrificing my well-being. Nutrition and physical care became strategic components of my professional sustainability. A multiple pregnancy demands higher caloric intake, balanced nutrients, and careful hydration. I approached meals with the same intentionality I applied to business planning. Preparing balanced snacks in advance prevented energy crashes during long work sessions. Gentle prenatal exercises, approved by my healthcare provider, helped maintain circulation and reduce discomfort. Sleep, though often interrupted, became sacred. I established a nighttime routine designed to maximize rest quality, limiting screen exposure and creating a calming environment. These habits were not superficial wellness trends. They were survival tools. When my body felt supported, my cognitive clarity improved. Decision-making, creativity, and patience all depended on physical stability. I began to see that professional excellence during twin pregnancy was directly tied to how well I cared for myself. Self-care was no longer optional. It was the infrastructure that sustained every other responsibility I carried. There were moments when external expectations clashed with internal reality. Deadlines do not disappear simply because you are pregnant, and certain professional environments still operate under the assumption that personal circumstances should not affect performance. Navigating these tensions required emotional resilience. Instead of internalizing unrealistic expectations, I learned to differentiate between constructive feedback and undue pressure. I asked myself whether a demand was truly urgent or simply habitual urgency embedded in workplace culture. This discernment allowed me to prioritize effectively. I also practiced letting go of perfectionism. Carrying twins taught me that perfection is often incompatible with sustainability. Delivering consistent high-quality work while protecting my health was a more meaningful achievement than chasing flawless execution at the expense of exhaustion. This recalibration of standards did not diminish my ambition, it refined it. I became more strategic, more intentional, and surprisingly more confident in my capacity to navigate complexity without burning out. Support systems extended beyond the workplace. Family and close friends became pillars of stability during particularly challenging weeks. Accepting help was initially difficult, as I had built much of my identity around independence. However, twin pregnancy humbled me in the best way possible. Simple gestures, like someone assisting with household tasks or providing emotional reassurance after a long medical appointment, made a tangible difference in my energy levels. This support allowed me to preserve mental bandwidth for professional responsibilities. I realized that balancing everything does not mean doing everything alone. It means orchestrating resources wisely. By leaning into community, I created a more sustainable rhythm. This interconnected approach mirrored effective leadership principles at work, where collaboration often produces stronger outcomes than solitary effort. The parallel between personal and professional support became clear. Resilience thrives in networks, not isolation. As the due date approached, planning for maternity leave required meticulous organization. Transition documents, delegated responsibilities, and clear communication channels were established to ensure continuity. Preparing for temporary absence forced me to confront a subtle fear, the fear of being replaced or forgotten. This vulnerability is rarely discussed openly, yet it is common among professionals stepping away for parental leave. Carrying twins amplified the stakes, as early delivery was a possibility. I addressed this fear by focusing on legacy rather than presence. If I had built strong systems and empowered my team effectively, my temporary absence would not diminish my value. This realization was empowering. It shifted my mindset from scarcity to trust. I understood that true professional impact is measured not by constant visibility, but by the durability of the structures and relationships you leave behind. Planning for leave became an affirmation of my leadership, not a threat to it. The final weeks were marked by a profound awareness of transition. Physically, movement became slower and more deliberate. Emotionally, anticipation intertwined with vulnerability. Each workday carried a sense of impending change, knowing that soon my focus would shift entirely to welcoming to new lives. I approached these days with intentional gratitude, appreciating the ability to contribute professionally while simultaneously nurturing life within me. This dual awareness deepened my sense of purpose. Work no longer felt like a separate identity from motherhood. It was part of a larger narrative of growth and responsibility. I recognized that the skills I refined during pregnancy, adaptability, strategic planning, emotional regulation, would serve me well in parenthood. The experience of balancing everything had already transformed me. I was no longer striving to prove I could handle it all. I had learned that balance is less about endurance and more about alignment with what truly matters in each season. Looking back, the physical and emotional challenges of maintaining a professional routine during a multiple pregnancy reshaped my understanding of strength. Strength was not powering through pain without acknowledgement. It was recognizing limits and adjusting accordingly. It was choosing rest when necessary, even when ambition urged otherwise. It was communicating needs clearly and trusting that vulnerability does not equate to weakness. Twin pregnancy intensified every sensation, every fear, and every joy, yet it also clarified priorities with remarkable precision. I emerged from that chapter not only as a mother of two, but as a more conscious professional. The balance I achieved was imperfect, evolving, and deeply human. It required constant recalibration, but it also revealed capacities within me that I might never have discovered under ordinary circumstances. Ultimately, balancing work and twin pregnancy was not about flawless execution or heroic endurance. It was about integration. It was about allowing my professional identity and my evolving motherhood to coexist rather than compete. By honoring my physical reality, nurturing my emotional resilience, and communicating transparently, I created a path that supported both my career and my growing family. The challenges were undeniable, but so were the lessons. Carrying two lives while sustaining professional commitments taught me that balance is not a destination. It is a continuous, compassionate negotiation with oneself. That negotiation, approached with honesty and intention, became the most valuable skill I carried into the next phase of my life. Balancing twin pregnancy and work changed me in ways I never anticipated. It forced me to slow down without losing ambition, to embrace vulnerability without surrendering strength, and to redefine productivity through the lens of sustainability. The physical and emotional challenges were real, sometimes overwhelming, yet they revealed a deeper resilience rooted not in perfection, but in conscious adaptation. If there is one lesson this journey offers, it is that balance is not about doing everything equally. It is about honoring what matters most in each moment. When we respect our limits and communicate our needs, we do not weaken our professional identity, we elevate it. And sometimes, the greatest growth happens when we are carrying more than we ever imagined possible.